for the Build Mississippi event. We've got Senator David Blount now joining us. Senator, you, of course, chair the Senate Gaming Committee, vice chair of Senate Education Committee. You reached out to me the other day. You heard us talking about the PERS program, something we talked about a lot on the show.
Yep.
And you reached out and said you wanted to come in and give a perspective, your perspective from the Democrat angle. Tell us about that.
Sure. I'm one of 4 legislators who serve in an advisory capacity on the Public Employees Retirement System Board, along with Senator Sparks, Representative Reed, and Representative Oliver. We don't get to vote, but we go to all the meetings, get briefed by the actuaries and all the rest of it. And I know there's a lot of concern about what Tier 5 would do. There are things that I want to emphasize that people don't need to be worried about, and there are things I think that people do need to be worried about, and I thought I would just try to answer those questions for your audience.
Okay. Well, we've described Tier 5 quite a bit on the program, and just at a very high level, the benefits aren't as generous as certainly from a defined benefit plan perspective as the current Tier 4 is. But the member doesn't contribute as much to that part of the program. However, the state continues to contribute the same amount, which goes to PERS. So it's more going in and less coming out, essentially.
That's accurate. The first thing I would say is if you are retired, or if you are an existing employee who is covered by PERS, you're going to be okay. The state or your employer, whether it be a city, county, school district, has a contractual obligation to you, and your retirement is guaranteed by the state by contract. So don't be worried if you hear about a PERS bill and you're retired or you're an active member in PERS that someone's going to change your benefits. Your benefits are not going to change, and we all agree on that. We also all agree that we need a new tier of benefits for people who have not been hired yet. Now, I disagree with the Republican position, the position that is now the law, having been signed into law by the governor, on what that new tier ought to look like, but we all agree that we ought to have a new tier. But stepping back for just a minute, the 2 issues that have dominated this session, there's a fundamental logical disconnect in my mind, and one of them is we have the state's in the best financial shape it's ever been in, and we need to eliminate the income tax, which is 1/3 of the state budget, more than $2 billion a year, because we're doing so great to have all this money. Number 2, we have a giant unfunded liability at PERS of $26 billion. Where are we going to find the money to fix this? We've got to do something to the retirement system. Well, the retirement system needs money. Whether we have a Tier 5 or not, whatever that Tier 5 may look like, and again, there's disagreements on what that Tier 5 ought to look like, everybody knows, and the board has said for years and years and years, the system needs money to pay the obligations that we owe. And whether you're in the system or whether you're not in the system, as a taxpayer, you owe this money. And what we should have done, and I actually had an amendment on the Senate floor to do this, the amendment did not pass, is we shouldn't cut taxes until we fix the retirement system. Now, that's not what happened. The governor has signed House Bill 1, which does both these things at once, to eliminate the income tax over a period of years, much faster than some people anticipated, and to provide reduced, worse benefits for people who have not been hired yet. Again, we needed Tier 5. It didn't have to be this system. And the people who are going to be hurt the most by this new Tier 5 are first responders, law enforcement, and teachers who are going to have the same retirement. And this is what this is the state's interest in all this, whether you're in the system or not, is teachers and law enforcement and firefighters and first responders don't get paid enough money. And what happens, so what keeps them on the job after they've been working for 6 or 8 or 10 years is a strong retirement system. That's what keeps them on the job. And if they have this new Tier 5, which most of the money is a 401k style system with no guaranteed benefits, despite unless what you make in the market, and a smaller defined benefit that has no cost of living adjustment at all, that person has no reason to stay in that job. That person should leave. That person could do probably better elsewhere, and we need people in these jobs. We need people working for police departments, sheriff's offices, and in the classroom. And the retirement system, a strong retirement system with a COLA, retains people who have started there, worked there for a while, think they can make more money somewhere else, but they stay because we have a strong retirement system, and that's why I think the Tier 5 that we've passed is a bad proposal.
Have you heard some feedback from public sector employees that participate in PERS about Tier 5 and how that might impact their ability to hire new talent?
I have heard from law enforcement and firefighters groups from across the Metro Jackson area where I live, but this affects everybody. I've talked to people in law enforcement at the city and state and county level. I've talked to people who are in the fire department. And these are people, if you're my age and you've been in the system for more than a decade or so, you could work for 25 years and draw a good retirement with a COLA. If you were hired last year, you can work for 30 years and draw a good retirement with a COLA. If you start today with the police department or the sheriff's office, you have to work until you're 62. Say you're 22 years old and you start to work at the police office or the sheriff's office. Under this new plan, you are going to have to work until you're age 62, in other words, 40 years, or in order to draw your retirement, or 30 years to draw a retirement that doesn't even have a COLA.
Well, 35 years at any age.
35 at any year. That's correct. And then you're going to have a smaller defined benefit program with no cost of living adjustment, and then you will have been responsible for your investments and how well they do, and you will be responsible for what you do with that account when you retire. And if your car breaks down or you have a medical emergency or something, that pot of money, whatever it is, based on how successful you've been in handling your investment, is going to be the majority of your retirement to last you the rest of your life, and good luck.
So also the bill does not mandate that employers contribute to the defined contribution side of the plan. That is discretionary by the employer. So the employee still contributes 9%, 4% to the benefit, 5% to the contribution plan. The state contributes all 19.9% to the PERS program. None goes to their defined contribution plan. So they don't get any sort of match the way a typical 401k plan would work, where an employer provides some financial contribution as well.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And so when you retire under this new Tier 5, you are going to retire with less money coming in, and because there is no COLA, that gap between what current retirees make and what you will make if you're a Tier 5 retiree is going to continue to get wider and wider and wider because there's no COLA, and you've just got to be responsible for your own investments.
What do you think we should do with the PERS program with a $26 billion unfunded liability?
I think we should do two things. One, our Tier 5, and I've got the numbers. I'll be happy to share them with you and with your audience. We should have said we're going to keep everything the same for Tier 5 as it is right now, in terms of years, in terms of contributions, in terms of cost.
Well, why do we need a new tier?
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
And instead of a 3% COLA, you're going to get a 1% COLA.
Okay.
And
compounded?
Yes.
1% compounded?
Yes.
So it's not tied to inflation in any way?
No, it's not.
It's really not a cost of living adjustment?
It is a fixed 1%, and based on the actuarial report, and I'm happy to share this with you and your listeners. Okay. Based on the actuarial report provided by the PERS board to the legislature, in 30 years, that plan, a 1% COLA, would be funded at 63.5%. In 30 years, the plan that is now the law, the new Tier 5, would be funded at 61%.
30 years.
In 30 years. In 40 years, the hybrid plan would be better off.
I've seen that all the various different recommended scenarios, everything from suspending the COLA for a while, for a different number of years.
That's not a good idea. Yeah. So I mean, we can get into details, but two things that I would have done is I would have had a defined benefit program with a COLA of 1%, and I would set up, and the House leadership has been for this, and I think they're right, a statutory way to pump money into the system on an annual basis that's not subject to the annual appropriations process, but sends a stream of money to the retirement system every year.
So you would have supported what the House had in their original tax reform bill to divert the first $100 million of lottery proceeds?
I don't know if it's lottery. I don't know. It could have been the income tax, but we're not going to have that anymore. But they need a permanent revenue stream coming to them every year, and there are different options to do that.
Because, as you know, Executive Director Higgins has said that this Tier 5 unto itself is not sufficient.
It's not, and that's why we needed an income tax. But I guess that horse is out of the barn.
So you believe we talk about it on the other side of the break. I know you got to get back to the Capitol, but we should be able to get you there.
Sure.
Yeah, we got Senator David Blount. We're down here at the Mississippi Trade Mart for Build Mississippi. It's middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart for Build Mississippi. We're visiting with Senator David Blount. So, Senator, continue, please, on what you think we should have done. I know you said that eliminating the income tax makes it even harder for the state to infuse cash.
Yes, that's right. I think that's obvious. Yes.
The PERS program. So, and we had two bills, one I think in each chamber this year, that would have in fact appropriated significant money, like we did last year, $110 million.
Yeah, we did that one time.
Both of those failed.
Yeah, and that's disappointing. I mean, I do agree that we need to have a statutory funding mechanism for PERS. There are different options out there to do that, but it matters. You can't be subject to the whims of the annual appropriations process when you know you have this money. It's like any other debt that you owe, and this debt is owed by the taxpayers of the state. The quicker you attack that debt and pay it down, the better off you'll be. And we need to do that, and we could have done that more quickly with more money faster if we had an income tax. But again, that's water under the bridge. But we need to set up a mechanism to pump money annually into the PERS system, because for the long run, it's going to be good for all the taxpayers of the state that owe this money.
So obviously you oppose the tax reform legislation. I assume you voted against the original Senate bill.
Yes.
As well, not the one that ultimately got inserted into HB1 and passed by the governor, but the original Senate bill. You voted against that.
I voted against both of them. I don't think eliminating the income tax is a good idea. I think there's three things going on, and we all know that first, that the state budget has been propped up with an unprecedented amount of federal money during COVID and during the Biden administration. That's over. We have more uncertainty than ever in Washington about how federal funds are going to flow to the state, to the Medicaid program, to the Department of Education, to the Department of Health. There's a lot of uncertainty right now about what the federal government is going to do, and is the federal government going to continue to send money like they have to support these state programs. Federal money is about 40% of the overall state budget, and there are a lot of questions that everybody, Republicans and Democrats, don't know the answer to right now. So this was a one-time windfall. We've got unprecedented uncertainty, and we need a diversified mix of income, sales tax, income tax, the other revenue the state generates. So I thought it was a bad idea, but again, that's the law.
Yeah. So what about mobile sports betting, Senator? That could have generated at least a little dab of revenue for the state.
Well, let me tell you how much revenue that would be, because I get
estimated, of course.
The estimated amount that I see on billboards and on Facebook ads is $20 million. Yep. That amount is 0.000000001% of the amount of revenue generated by the income tax. That's 7 zeros to the right of the decimal point and then 1. If the income tax generates more than $2 billion a year, the mobile sports betting, as proponents indicate, would generate $20 million a year. That is not a relevant issue within the context of a tax cut. Now, there are people who want to engage in mobile sports betting, and the only reason they can't do it is because the government won't let them, and that's a legitimate discussion to have. And last year in particular, we looked at it very hard. But it is not at all relevant in the context of the amount of revenue that it would generate compared to the amount of revenue that people were so excited to eliminate.
Do you feel like the estimates are accurate?
The number I gave you is the number that the proponents give. I assume that is based on taxing it the same way we tax revenue sports betting that happens in a casino right now. I don't know. I do think it's a complicated question because, as we've discussed on the show before, there are folks in this business that think it will hurt their business and impact jobs. There are other casino operators that disagree with that and think that will help their business. So the number I quote you is just the number that's being given by the proponents, and that may be in the ballpark. I don't think it's. Well,
the reason I asked that question is because North Carolina had a very conservative estimate as well, but they generated $729 million last year of revenue, the first year that they implemented mobile sports betting.
Yeah. So
it's a bigger state than Mississippi.
It is a bigger state. I don't know what the tax rate is up there. I mean, I think I think the proponents are assuming that the tax rate would be the same. It doesn't have to be the same. But again, within the context of having just eliminated the income tax, it is beyond insignificant in terms of revenue. Don't eliminate $2 billion worth of revenue and come tell me that we need $20 million from sports betting. The reason to consider it, and we have considered it, is a lot of people want to do this, and it's available in other states. And I think, quite frankly, that if Mississippi did not have a healthy tourism-based casino industry, we'd have mobile sports betting in Mississippi right now. But we do, and those folks have been here for more than 30 years. It's an important part of our economy, and so I listen.
Do you believe this would hurt them?
I think it could. There's not a consensus on that. There are people who disagree with that. There's some people who think in that business who think it'd be helpful.
Yeah.
I will tell you, and I went to a conference just in December about this. There are people who believe, and this is being pushed in other states, that it is a means towards what's called iGaming. There are 7 states in the country right now that allow you to play poker on your phone, to do blackjack on your phone, play all the different table games that you can play in a casino on your phone. That's in 7 states right now, and those states see it as an easy way to get tax money. I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's bad for the culture of Mississippi, and that would be devastating to our casino businesses. Now, that's not in the bill that passed the House, and I'm not suggesting that it is, but I have heard from other states that started with mobile, and once people start doing stuff on their phone, they want to do more stuff on their phone.
That's prohibited in the lottery bill as well, by the way.
And so, again, I'm not suggesting that was in the House bill, but I do know that is an increasing topic of conversation in the states around the country, and what it means to me is it's sort of a way to shift the funding of government from basic things like the income tax to lottery and liquor and gambling and all these other things as a means to fund government, and I think that's wrong-headed. I think we had right now maybe one of, if not the smallest income taxes in the country for states that do have income tax. So I think that was part of our revenue mix that we needed.
Did your committee actually vote on this measure, or did it ever come up for a vote in the committee?
Mobile sports betting did not come up for a vote. We passed.
But you have the power to dispense of that, right, as the committee chairman?
I do, and obviously I talk to other folks in the Senate, but I'm not the dictator of the committee, and I talk to other people. But, yes, the chairman would have to bring that bill up.
Okay.
We passed a lot of good legislation this year. We passed Tideland's legislation for the casinos on the Gulf Coast. That was supported by every single senator from the Gulf Coast, all of whom are Republicans. We passed legislation requested by the Gaming Commission to crack down on illegal internet gaming, which is currently a misdemeanor. It would have been tough penalties, again, requested by the commission to deal with illegal online gaming. We passed legislation pushed by Senator Michelle and Lieutenant Governor Hosemann to allow for gaming winnings to be garnished for people who owe child support. All these things were popular. All these things were unanimously popular, supported by Republican legislators, and they all died in the House because the House won't consider any legislation as it relates to gaming, even if supported by every Republican in the state Senate, and I think most Republicans in the House, until we have sports betting on your phone. So we agree on 4 out of the 5 issues, but right now we can't make progress on any of them because we do have a disagreement about sports betting.
Would you support increasing the income tax?
No, I've not suggested. The only tax increase that I've advocated since I've been in the legislature is raising taxes on cigarettes.
Okay.
So that was not necessary. Democrats have not filed bills to increase income taxes, but we have opposed these cuts because we think the state budget is coming for a reckoning in 2 or 3 years because of the economic cycles, particularly following COVID, and because of what we may see coming out of Washington.
What are you hearing about from the Division of Medicaid as far as their future financial needs? I'm hearing that it could be significant.
Well, it seems a little chaotic to me. What's going on in Washington, but I know that if the state match for the existing Medicaid program, I'm not talking about expansion now.
Right.
And I was asked on the floor by a Republican senator if I was pushing expansion now that we've seen all this stuff happen out of Washington, and I think we need to pause on that for right now. But if the state match on the existing revenue for Medicaid, the existing program is reduced by 1%, the state's got to come up with $80 million. If it's reduced by 10%, the state's got to come up with $800 million.
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'd be concerned about that because either what will happen is the state's going to have to make up that money, or you're going to have to cut a lot of services that benefit a lot of people. The same is true with the Department of Education.
Well, I'm hearing, I guess, just anecdotally, that even without any changes at the federal level, that the Division of Medicaid is suggesting that more money is needed just to meet our state's obligation in the match.
I think that's true, and when you eliminate a third of the state budget, that's going to be very difficult to meet.
Gotcha. Senator David Blount has been our guest here on Middays. We're down at the Mississippi Trade Mart for Build Mississippi. Thanks for coming in, Senator. Appreciate
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. We're coming right back.